right, and welcome to 498. I am Dr. Tony Palmeri, and I'm going to be interviewing a number of communication studies graduates, and I'm really thrilled that the inaugural episode is one of my all-time favorite students, and her name is Kayla Fischer. And Kayla, when you were here at UW Oshkosh, you were Kayla Eamon.
Correct.
Is that right? And so when did you get married?
October of 22.
Oh, cool. Congratulations. 3 years.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's gone pretty fast, huh?
Yeah, it most certainly has. It still
Right.
also feels like it's 2020 in my brain too.
Yeah, it
So
still feels like that. Well, now you graduated in 2018, correct?
correct.
Yes. And let's start with where you are now, and then we'll work backwards. You are currently, I want to make sure I have your title correct. You are the development director at Big Brothers Big Sisters of East Central Wisconsin. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
All right. And you started there in October of 24?
Yes.
All right. So what does a development director do?
Yeah, so my primary responsibilities with Big Brothers Big Sisters is a huge focus on community engagement. So that involves getting the community to know about us alongside my team. I have a fantastic team that helps with that too. I
Mhm.
oversee our community engagement department. But then the biggest component of my position is fundraising. So that's putting in for grants, sponsorships for our events, increasing that ask and relationship with our individual donors and corporate donors as well. But it all kind of ties back to that public relations communication side of getting out there, making those relationships, and forming those authentic connections.
Yeah. Talk about how your communication studies degree prepared you for things like fundraising, because I know that fundraising is not easy.
No, it's not. And it's not for everybody, that's for sure. But for me, I decided to be a comm major because getting in front of people and speaking was something I was actually really scared to do. And I had looked at college of how can I get better at something I know is really important, but I'm also not great at. So through comm, it had encouraged me to figure out how to make those connections with people that I was maybe intimidated by because they were older than me, they carried themselves more confidently, they had more experience than I did. So it really pushed me out of my element. And also through comm with all of the writing that I know everyone kind of they love it and hate it. The proficiency that you get from writing all of the papers will really help when it comes to that business communication side of whether it's writing and asking for grants or also just email communication is a huge component that people miss out on.
So it sounds like you're in the business of persuasion.
Kind of.
Yeah, yeah, you're trying to get people to give you money, essentially. When you're raising money, say, do you often do it with phone calls?
Some phone calls, but a lot of it turns into face to face or a lot of just with how things have gone since COVID, a lot of it is just strictly over the internet too.
Oh, okay. And so do you have like a script that you work from, or do you approach each individual as an individual and try to appeal to them in a way that you think might connect with them specifically? What is your fundraising strategy?
Yeah, so there's always that core of what we do and how to really tell that story. As you mentioned, it is really the art of persuasion.
Yeah.
However, then it's really important to curate that to each individual or your audience, kind of like how when you take debate and different speech courses through comm, of making sure your argument per se is scripted to your audience to fit what their interests are. So I'll do a lot of research on the business or the individual I'm trying to fundraise to,
Mhm.
um, and make sure that that is really fit with one in what their goals are. If it's a business that cares about mental health, focusing on how our mission at Big Brothers Big Sisters impacts and affects the mental health of our littles and bigs. And if it's a business that say cares about education, focusing on how our mission impacts and betters the education of those who are in our program.
Right. Wow, that's great. Is it true, Kayla, that a position like you have is something that, say, big brothers and big sisters might initially think, oh, we need a business student to do this. And then they find out that maybe a liberal arts major or a comm major is actually better suited. What's your view on that?
I feel like, especially for this position, that having the comm or liberal arts major helps back you a lot more than the business.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense of, I feel like business is a lot more black and white. And with the liberal arts and comm majors, it allows you to start seeing different perspectives
Yes.
that I feel like business might not necessarily have the opportunity to.
All right, cool. Is your
Sorry about that.
They won't leave you alone, will they?
No.
All right. Let's go back to when you first graduated. And I know that the first really major job that you had, and I remember you were really fired up about this at the time, was with the Hotel Northland in
Mhm.
Green Bay, right? And
Yes.
that's like a classic hotel that they remodeled, right?
Yes.
And you became their catering sales and event coordinator. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And how did you get that job initially?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate that I had received several valuable internships while I was still in college.
Okay.
Um, one of with being with an event venue called the Grand Meridian, which is no longer. And I was there for 6+ months working with them. So that helped me with that aspect. And
Mhm.
at that point, they were also willing and looking for more of that entry level position. But my internships that I had helped give me those skills too, in addition to my communications degree, because with events and catering, all of that boils down to communicating with clients and also being able to be personable and show face.
Right. Wonderful. And so then you got that job at the Northland and things were going really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then COVID hit.
Yep.
And so what happened to your position when COVID hit?
Yeah, so I was furloughed when everybody else started getting furloughed. And then come June or July, they had asked me to come back part-time for about 10 to 20 hours a week. And at that point, they told me events are starting to happen, but they had no idea if they would ever be able to bring me back on full time
Wow.
because businesses didn't know what the state of COVID would leave them in. And at that point, it was really just private events happening. So your weddings, people being willing to risk birthday parties at that point. So
Hmm.
that was what led me then to putting in my resignation there and accepting a different position with a company called LiveX.
Right. And we'll talk about that in a second. But how did it feel when you had to resign from that position? I mean, this is something that a lot of our students, everyone will go through that.
Mm-hmm.
No one is exactly sure when it's going to happen or how it's going to feel. How did you process that at the time?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I have taken away is change is never easy. And if it was easy, then it wouldn't be worth the change, really, and that it's not scary too. But
Mhm.
putting in my resignation, there's a lot of guilt that comes with it, especially when you do authentically enjoy what you're doing. And even if you say are kind of over it, you do still form those relationships with your colleagues and you put your heart into what you're doing.
Sure.
However, just keeping perspective of that that's part of life and you're taking steps to better yourself is what really pushed me through it.
Hmm. Wow. And so then you did go to LiveX. What is LiveX? What do they
So,
do?
yeah, LiveX is a production company that's based out of New York. So, when it's New Year's Eve and we're all live streaming the New York Times ball drop, they're the ones who are producing that.
Oh, what did you do for them?
With them, I was an executive assistant. So that was a position I didn't necessarily think I would ever find myself in, but the owner had seen how my skills as an events coordinator and with my communications degree, how that kind of correlated.
Oh, wow. Did you enjoy your time with LiveX?
It was okay. It was definitely more of a place filler for me, and it helped give some other broadening experience for myself. However, it wasn't a position that filled up my cup.
Right. And then from there, you spent, I believe, about 3 years at Shields, the
Hmm.
sporting goods place up in Appleton, right?
Correct.
And you were in public relations and you were a community outreach specialist. So what did you do for Shields?
Yeah, so with Shields, I got to essentially be the face of the company for our local team. So that included being out at community events, formulating partnerships, turning our sponsorships into partnerships, figuring out what businesses it made sense for us to partner with, to sponsor and support, and then also handling all of our donations from a store level.
Wow. And did you enjoy this position?
I loved it, yes.
Oh, you did.
Hmm.
And so what happened? Did you resign from that position or were you let go from that position?
No, so that one I did resign from. It came to a point where there was no forward momentum for me to go up. And I just had bigger career goals than staying in one position for the rest of my life. Despite loving the company, I loved what I did, but I also had started entering a season of my life too where I worked a lot of nights and weekends. And in the season I worked there, it was really great. But now I'm getting to a point in my life where it would be nice to not work every single weekend during the
Oh,
summer and enjoy
sure.
it.
Right. So, did Big Brothers Big Sisters just, how did you find out about that opportunity?
Yes, so I had actually worked with them during my time at Shields, and I received an email on the person who held this position, her last day, letting me know that she was moving on elsewhere. She had taken on a position where she was doing kind of the same thing I did. She moved up a step professionally. And I sat on the position for a while. I looked at it and thought, I have no fundraising skills. There's no way this is a fit for me. I'm just going to leave it. And then I just kept sitting on it, and almost a month went by, and I saw the position was still open. So I thought, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. Still a great organization. I have a big heart for kids. And I applied, and they recognized my name for that too. And they were happy I applied. And after about a month or so, I got my offer.
That's great. You know, what I find really interesting about this is that you were working with Big Brothers or had a connection while you were at Shields, and that really is part of the networking that we talk about in our Com 498 class. And I mean, isn't this a great example of how networking works?
It is. Networking is a thing that I will never stop talking about and encouraging people to do.
Okay. Yeah, and so, well, let's talk about that a little bit more. So currently, how do you network so that when you're raising money, for example, do you make sure that after you've, say, gotten a positive response, you remain in contact with those folks?
Hmm. Yeah, so for that aspect, a lot of it includes follow up and also making sure to remember who they are, which can be very hard. And I know some people have different tricks for it. I'm fortunate with a memory that I can remember where they come from. Names I'm horrible with. But being able to remember tidbits about them has helped. And when you see them out in the community, saying something to them is really important. But regarding after seeing them out and about, that follow up is crucial. Of either it's sending an email to them to let them know if they're sponsoring an event, how that event went, or just reaching out to them with letting them know if you're working for a nonprofit to let them know about how they're like this new impact story that you got or your last year impact that you had created is really important. Regarding networking, though, just anything chamber wise and putting yourself out there as much as you can is important too.
Yeah, I've noticed that you're fairly active on LinkedIn. Do you think that social media is important in networking in this day and age?
I think social media is definitely important. However, my take on it is with how comfortable we have gotten with social media, it's almost the easy button. That there's
Uh,
also something to be said about forcing yourself out of your comfort zone too and actually attending those events. And it's scary to go up to people, but starting small with young professionals networks that can really help open your horizons, and then you take the step getting further. So there's definitely
Yes.
a fine balance.
Yeah, I've noticed that are you still involved with, it's called Pulse Young
Yep.
Professionals?
Yep.
Tell us what you do with Pulse Young Professionals.
Yes. So I am on both their social committee, which plans their social events, and then I also am the formerly known as president, currently known as chair for the advisory committee. Whole propaganda with titles with chambers sometimes. But with that, I get to oversee a lot of the ins and outs of Pulse for what's happening across all three of the committees. And our biggest objective is how can we engage younger professionals, make them feel more comfortable. A lot of people join young professional groups too because they're new to a specific area, they need friends, or they're looking for their next career move to grow in their career, or they're just looking for a job in general. So those are really important, and I help kind of oversee some of those events and aspects that we put into play. And then I try to also make sure when I'm at events to not just fall into my circle, but also be that person that helps that newcomer feel welcomed.
This is really great. So Pulse really, almost all their events are in person, correct? So
Correct.
it's in-person networking. You get a chance to talk with real live people. It goes beyond the computer screen and so on. So would you advise everyone listening to us when they quote unquote settle down in a community to get involved
Yes.
with an organization like Pulse or the JCs or something like that?
Very much so. And more than likely, the business that you enter into is probably involved with something, whether it's they're a member of the chamber and they maybe just don't utilize their membership. But it's always a good thing to ask about those. And if they're not, a lot of young professional groups are free, or it's also a lot of times free for you to attend, say, business after hours or other local networking things too as an individual.
Yeah. This is such great advice, Kayla, and I know that so many people get their job and they forget that, especially in this economy, you have to always keep your eyes and ears open, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. I mean, look at, okay, I believe you're not even 30 years old yet, right? And
Correct.
you've had four what I would call fairly major positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially the one that you're in right now. And that's probably pretty common now, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of kids from my class have made some good changes, or they've just continued to grow within their company through different
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself going now? So, like, what would be the next step at Big Brothers, for
Mhm.
example, if you stay with them?
Yeah, so and I've already chatted about it. So that's also an important thing once you start somewhere is figuring out what they're willing to invest in you in a positive way.
Hmm.
But my CEO and I have already discussed that I will plan on joining a nonprofit leadership institute and taking the steps to eventually become what's called an ED or executive director or CEO of either Big Brothers or another nonprofit.
Wow, that is so great. Well, know that all your former professors, we have your back.
Appreciate that.
So whenever you need us to put in a good word, just don't hesitate. Um, what advice would you have for students that are going to be graduating very soon as they navigate the uh, the employment world right now? Are there like one, two, or three things that you think are really critical?
Yeah. One, definitely attend those chamber events. I know in Oshkosh, there's the Oshkosh Chamber that can be really crucial. I know I was just at, they call it the OC Connect, um, which it takes place at the chamber, so not too far away from the school. And I had seen there was a young college student there. She wasn't even close to graduating, but the impression that it had that she was already attending those sorts of events and putting herself out there, despite admitting that she was terrified, was very impressive
Good for her.
and very regarded well. The other thing, as someone who just spent a lot of time applying places, wasting, not really, but feeling like I was wasting my time on all of these interviews and just getting really bogged down while I was trying to find my next step. just don't give up on it. It is a lot of work and you put in a lot, but also there is something too to be said about either A, holding your ground, or B, learning how to be flexible and take something, say, that isn't necessarily your dream, but is going to help give you that experience, even if you're there for 6 months to a year. It's a
Mhm.
paycheck, which is great. But also the unfortunate thing is a lot of employers will just take that business that you had, that job position you had as something important too. Um, but and then also again, like I mentioned, networking is very impressive.
Cool. I know, Kayla, you've also been involved in hiring people.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give our audience a sense of what kind of mistakes do people make in the interviewing process?
Yeah.
Are there things that you've encountered that are like an immediate problem or turnoff?
Yeah, some things as you look at just from as you're submitting your resume, make sure that it formats properly. That's a mistake I've made myself by downloading it and doesn't format properly to them. So always double check. And also if they're asking for a cover letters suck to write. I know they do, but make sure to do it because as I was say hiring for the position that I just hired for, the people that actually took the time to write the cover letter when it was asked and followed that direction stood out immensely more and
Wow.
also helps humanize. The other thing too is, and I know when I was in college it got drilled, really make sure to plug in those keywords because as we get more into a technological AI ran society on the internet, that is how people are getting weeded out a lot. And
Really?
unfortunately, some people aren't even getting interviews that are insanely qualified because of those reasons.
So the AI program is looking for certain buzz phrases,
Yeah.
words?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That's
and I know it's been a thing for a while, and I think it'll probably continue getting better for employers, but worse for those trying to get hired. So really take the time to do that, especially for a position you really want, to throw in as many applicable key phrases in there as you can.
wow,
But then
incredible.
as far as interviewing goes, just really make sure to be on time, be yourself, because a lot of places too hire for personality over what you can do. And if you find a
Mhm.
place like that, that's more than likely the best place for you to work.
Yeah, and would you agree with me that communication graduates are probably a lot more qualified for positions than they think?
Yes, very, very much so.
Yeah, because I've had students express frustration to me that, well, not enough companies are looking for a communication student. And my response usually is, well, they don't know that they need you,
Hmm.
right? Is this true? You need to show
Yes.
them that they need you.
Correct. Yep. And that's where it all goes into making sure your resume is formulated for what they're looking for, but with a comm degree. And I think it's starting to get better. I've seen a lot of marketing positions asking for comm degrees and other related, like my development director asked for a comm degree as one of the options. And I wouldn't have ever thought that this was a position for me when I was in college either.
Wow, amazing. Kayla, thank you so much for doing this. Is it okay if I share your email address with the
Yeah,
students?
absolutely.
All right, I will do that. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and for what you've done. I think it's going to be really enjoyable for the students.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. And I wish everyone about to graduate the best. And if anyone ever needs any insights, I am more than happy to answer anything and help out.